Hey, everybody, it's your girl Sherry. Welcome back to Alleged Actually podcast. On today, y'all, we have a very esteemed guest, none other than Miss Monica S. Love, co author of the book Design Your Wealth Mindset. Y'all, I've been plugging this book since we had part one of this series. I told you guys if you haven't gotten it yet, you need to get it. Let me get it in frame. You can get it right now on Amazon. We have a great interview for you. Miss Monica has been also part of she's 1/5 of the Exit Strategy Group, and her contribution to the book is going to be an excellent content for us today. Let me give you, before we get into this great interview, I want to give you her bio, guys. Get this. Monica S. Love hails from Detroit, Michigan. She is a fierce advocate for women, public speaker, business coach, real estate maven, licensed minister. Did y'all catch that, T? 3-time best-selling author, though she has authored 6 books. So she knows a thing about authoring a book. So also, ladies, if you want to know, because there's so many of you guys that have hit me up about how to get started on writing your books, Miss Monica is your lady. Also, major champion of business ownership and trailblazer who leads with integrity, fostering business savvy behavior. I mentioned before, she is 1/5 of the Exit Strategist Group. And these are 5 dynamic women that have come together to write this book, all bringing unique skill sets and expertise. And each one of them have got excellent contributions that are going to help us ladies, whether you are in the beginning of your game, a novice, or someone who considers yourself financially sound. There's something for us all to learn. Help me, guys, welcome Miss Monica S. Love. Thank you so much for being here.
Sherry, thank you so much for that warm, beautiful welcome. I'm like, is she talking about me? You're welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So I dove in. The whole book is amazing. So in your chapter, it is entitled Business Savvy Behavior, Building a Legacy. And you open your chapter by mentioning Robert Kiyosaki and his book, The Cash Flow Quadrant. I want you to talk to our viewers about business savvy behavior and how that feeds into achieving the ultimate dream of obtaining financial freedom.
So in answering that question, Sherry, let me first start off by almost defining what it means to be business savvy, because that means to have a keen understanding of how business operates, right? And the ability to make smart business decisions, informed decisions, and make sure that all of these decisions that you're making is going to contribute to your success, right? It involves the combination of practical knowledge, strategic thinking, financial acumen. These things are important when you talk about having your own business, because you no longer have someone, just say you're working in corporate America, you have, someone who's over your shoulder telling you you need to do this, that, and a third. Well, when you have your own business, you are telling you need to do this, that, and a third, and you have to know what this, that, and a third actually is in order to make sure that it's identifying opportunities to be profitable. And it's aligning with your goals, both short-term and long-term goals, and making sure that your skill set allows you to be effective in that business of being profitable, and business savvy behavior means that you create a sustainable and scalable business model, eventually leading to an ultimate goal of freedom, financial freedom, because we tend to know how to work for someone. And we know, even when I worked in corporate America, because I did work in corporate America for about 25 years, and I never understood, because I was always in sales.
Okay.
So there was always like commission that was coming in based on the sales that I made. So I never understood how to make just like, every month or every week you're going to make, just say $1,000. I'm just using a round number. Could be 10,000, could be 20,000. I don't know, but
Right.
just a specific amount of money, and make that be fine. Like, I always wanted to know that I'm going to be able to make some extra money. And that's the
Absolutely.
thing about being business savvy, is that you always are able to make additional money because it's based on you. You are the culprit for determining how much or how little you make based on your effort, your input, and knowing how to make those decisions that are smart and informed.
I love that. I love that. That is very, very important. And thank you for how you broke that down, because I think a lot of people don't understand that. And so you broke that down beautifully, which leads us into our next question. We're going to
Mhm.
dive into the 4 ways of earning money. And in your book, you do break it down in 4 ways: employee, self employed individual, business owner, and investor. Can you talk to us a little bit about each?
Yes, and I do not get any monies from Mr. Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know him. I'm not plugging his book. But
Right.
when I read that cash flow quadrant, and it broke down the 4 different ways that we earn money, we have a potential to earn money. It was just so enlightening and just mind blowing for me. So as an employee, so there are 4. We'll start with employee, the
Okay.
E. The employee is someone who works for someone else, right? And we're groomed from preschool to work for someone else. The educational system, as we know it, is about 200 years old. Before that, formal education was mostly reserved for the elite. But as the industrialization changed, when the automotive industries and that began to pop up all over the place, well, primarily in the Detroit area, but the industrialization caused the factory owners to determine that they needed a workforce that was docile enough, agreeable enough, would show up at work, would manage their time, do what they're told. And so they changed the educational system, and they made it so that this is what the children were being taught.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, because they wanted to have a workforce, an employee who would help them build their legacies and their dreams. John Rockefeller was one of the culprits of making sure that the educational system was set up the way that it is today, because he, as an oil tycoon, he too needed a workforce. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what an employee is. It's a person who works for someone else to help them build their empire. They trade dollars for time, or trade time for dollars. And then the next one is the employed individual. This person identifies that there is a need in the marketplace. Whatever that need is that he or she has identified, then they create a job for themselves to fulfill that need that they have identified in the marketplace. So then they still have to put that time in order to get those dollars, but now they're doing it for themselves. So they don't have somebody telling them when to come, when to go, but they're self-employed. So they've created a job for themselves. And then the business owner is the person who identifies the business opportunity that is scalable, and allows himself to eventually exit the daily operations and the minutia of the daily grind, and eventually have an opportunity to be free while someone else runs the business smoothly, right? Because they've already put in operation what they want that business to look like. So that's what the business owner is accustomed to doing. And then there's the investor. So this is the 4th one in the quadrant. Now, and you can occupy any 4 of these quadrants simultaneously. Like, you can be an employee, in my opinion, especially if you don't come from wealth. You might want to make sure you maintain that employment so that the bills are paid, right? It's not
Right.
inherently wrong to be an employee. But what, in Monica's opinion, what's inherently wrong is when that's your only lifelong goal, is to be an employee, because then you don't get an opportunity to build something and leave it for your children or grandchildren. and build that generational wealth that is so often talked about these days. So the investor is the one who may or may not have a physical assets that they put their money into. They could be putting their money into real estate or stocks and bonds or mutual funds, whatever that investment strategy they've determined to put their monies into. They know that it's going to multiply and turn over. The thing is that there is a risk factor with
Right.
whatever investment you put your money into. There's a risk factor, but that's why, again, it goes back to being smart, savvy, educate yourself. Never. So here's a key, a KEY. Keep educating yourself. Keep educating yourself. It's never, ever, ever a good idea to stop getting education and information, because as
Mhm.
the world turns, knowledge sure does too.
Yes, it
So
does.
it's, that's the key, is to keep educating yourself, and that's what a good investor will do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay. No, I think I thought that was really, really interesting. And I like how you said that at certain times you can do those simultaneously. Myself, I am an employee, yet I also, my husband and I, we own properties that we rent, and we also have some other properties that we are looking at. Um, Now I have an Airbnb business, different things, and we're trying to, yes, yes. But while we have been growing this, we have our 9 to 5 too. The end goal, of course, would be to have those properties work for us, and eventually, that is how we are trying to build our legacy. But we are still, building. So yeah, we do a little both, and we do have some investments. So I love that.
mhm,
I
mhm.
love that. I do.
And kudos to you and Mister for knowing that you wanted to do something more, because sometimes we can get so comfortable in our day to day, especially when you're making a nice little salary.
Right.
You can get comfortable in that, and do exactly what the majority of Americans do, which is continue to work for someone else. Which, again, there is nothing wrong with that,
No, there's not.
especially when you know that you got an end game goal and you working toward that goal. And if your end game goal is to just retire and be done, baby, I'm out, that's your business, honey. Go
Right.
and do your thing.
I feel you.
Yes, but I
Mhm.
I think it's important for us, and we'll get to this in
Mhm.
a little bit in the latter part of the conversation. But I think it's important for us as Black and Brown people to make sure that we're being intentional in this hour. We've had to do what we have to do for so long
Yes.
that my generation and the generation right behind me, we did not have an opportunity so much to do some of the things because we didn't have the education and the information. Other communities they've sat around the dinner table and had conversations about, what is equity. They've had
Mhm.
conversations about investment opportunities, stocks and bonds. They've had conversations about what a mutual fund is, because even if daddy didn't know, Uncle Johnny did. And so they would have these conversations. If it's not around the dinner table, it's at the family reunion, so
Mhm.
that we're still able to talk about it. And I'm going to make this little plug. So I go into the high schools for this very reason, and I educate 12th graders on real estate.
Good.
I help them to understand what it means to either get into the business of real estate as a licensed professional, which I am a licensed broker. So I help them to know how to get into the business, or as an investor. I'm also an investor. I invest in real estate, but I help these kids to know how to get into investing in real estate, be it from a professional perspective, or be it from a I'm going to help you buy this property because I know how to now wholesale properties. I know how to fix and flip
Yes.
properties.
Yes.
Even so, I teach them how to do that, so that they have information and education that I was not necessarily privy to. And I can't necessarily say that I wasn't privy to it, because my father always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So when I was 18 years old, my dad, I think he recognized, because he didn't have any boys. So I think he recognized in me what he saw in himself. So he would call me his little lad until my mama told him to stop calling me that, because that's a little boy and
Yeah.
she's not a boy. But
Yeah.
he would always call me his little lad, and he went out and bought me. Some of you will remember the Carlton Sheets program, which is a real estate program, big, thick book he bought for me to teach me. And the Carlton Sheets program was how to buy money or how to buy properties with no money down.
Wow.
And I went through that whole program. It was cassette tapes, y'all. It was probably about 15 to 20 cassette tapes with the
Okay.
books to go through it. I went through that whole program at 18.
Wow.
But the thing was, I was not a middle-aged white man. So I didn't have the confidence to go knock on somebody's door and say, would you like to sell me your property with the equity that you can get out now? You can get some of that equity out now, because we'll do it on what's today it's called oh shoot, I can't think of the name of it. It'll come to me. But it's called something different today than what it was then. It was called buying properties with no money down. Seller financing is what it's called today.
Yep.
It's called seller financing. So I didn't have the confidence to go and knock on that door and get them to finance that property for me. And so I couldn't do anything with it, but that planted a seed. And so now in this day, if we become intentional about planting those seeds for our children, maybe they might not do it today. But
Right.
if I can work with these kids, I had in my pilot program, I had 14 kids that signed up for the program. 10 of them completed the program with the hours that were necessary in the state of Michigan to set for their state exam. And we have worked on a few different investment deals. And we're still working together on some investment deals to bring to fruition so that they can make some thousands of dollars legally, baby.
Yes.
And Black and brown children
Yes.
can know what it means to be an entrepreneur, a millionaire, a billionaire. Why not?
Yes. Why not?
Other nationalities have been teaching their children how to do these kinds of things, and they've grown up with the privilege, they've grown up with the information and education. Now it's time for us to make sure that our children are grown up with the information and education as well.
Amen.
I took it all the way there, didn't I? I'm sorry.
You did, but you know what? I love it because honestly, everything that you said, I mean, it just struck a chord for myself. The things that I'm doing to try to now educate my children. And transparent moment, I'm 51, okay? My husband and I, this is my second marriage, and he has really enlightened me and brought me into the fold later in life, okay? So it is something now that I am fiercely trying to instill in my children who are already grown. They are 28, 26, and 24. They are embracing it. They are, like sponges at this point. But I wished I had that in high school because I had the drive. I would have done that, but there was not that. And transparent moment for me, I grew up in Eastern North Carolina, beach town, predominantly white. I a lot of time would find myself being the only Black girl, Black person in my class. And honestly, my family, I grew up well, but my family was under the mindset, you go to college, you go get a good job with a good retirement package. That's what you do. And there is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But to come together with my husband, who he hails from Brooklyn, New York, we come from two different cultures. He's always about like what's the next thing. I'm not going to be happy here. We're going to elevate, we're going to keep making our money make us money. And it has opened me up. But I love what you're doing for these high school students, because the sooner they get that information and those opportunities and know that they're available, right? It changes things. And that's what we need to do as a community. And that's going to be a big part of my question when I get to it about your dad, because that's the part that really hurt my heart. And I want to talk about that, which is, let's just go into that. I don't have to go in any particular order. So first, let me say, your father's story was extremely inspiring for me. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
loved his entrepreneurial spirit. I love that despite the barriers that was in his way, he kept going and he tried to instill in y'all and leave with y'all that legacy that clearly is living on in you, which I think is
Yeah.
beautiful. And I love how you're now taking that and you are sharing that with these young people and other people, that anyone that will listen. I love that you're sharing that. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
So it lives on through you. One thing that I found, because he always talked about the importance of home ownership, which is a big deal. Big deal. Okay.
Yeah.
And then owning your own business, which we've talked about also.
Mm-hmm.
But what struck a chord with me was how you talked about how, he was trying to get his liquor license and, he wasn't able to do so. There were a lot
Yeah.
of barriers. However, his Arabic competitors were able to secure that because of their sense of community, how they came together, how they had the resources and they shared them with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, what bothered me and what continues to bother me is why we're not as far. I mean, we talked about why we're not where we want to be because we're starting at a deficit, right?
Right.
We have to catch up, right? We
Right.
That's just simply what it is for African Americans.
Yeah.
But our sense of community, it's got to change. We got to be willing to share our resources and share our information and bring each other up and work together. What say you there?
Yeah. Yeah. So you know what? So in this section of the book, so they're gonna get me for saying this. They might. They had to keep pulling me back in because I wanted to go there about the whole experience that people of color experience. I'm just Black people, African Americans, what we experience these days that other communities don't necessarily experience because they do lift each other up and pick each other up. Listen, you all have to get this book, Design Your Wealth Mindset, because I do talk about it in the book as extensively as possible. One of the things that I do mention is about Black Wall Street and um, the story about the Haiti community in the Carolinas, or Durham, North Carolina.
Yes.
And what that is when those communities experienced so much turmoil because they refused to sit back and do what people wanted them to do. They came together as a community. And guess what? The dollar turned over in those communities between 36 to 100 times before it left the community. Hello?
Hello.
36 to 100 times that the dollar turned over in that community, in those communities, because they were on one accord, supporting each other, lifting each other up, buying from each other, and not complaining about how negative this, that, or the other was, but they stuck together. And that's what was happening around my father back in the 80s and 70s when he opened up his store. And there were his competitors, as you call them. They were like minded business owners who supported, encouraged, and helped to educate one another. And it created a powerful alliance
Yeah.
that caused their businesses to grow. And it far surpassed him because they were able to get the licenses and they were able to collaborate and network with one another and gain access to the wealth and the collective knowledge and experiences and resources that their community was able to get. My father wasn't able to do that because he didn't have the education, the information, the support. He struggled with being by himself. He had a limited perspective of how to go about. I can remember people coming down to the store where he would have to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands. I don't know. I was 12 years old when he first opened the store. I was 12 years old, so I didn't know a lot about what he was doing business wise. But I remember people coming down to the store, and I can remember him sitting back there with these guys who had on these suits, and I would see Daddy giving them money, and they were having conversations, and of course he would run me out because I shouldn't be back there where two men were talking. And I'm certain that he was trying to find out what he needed to do to advance, to grow, and to amplify his business. But because, they didn't have his best interest at heart, they weren't his brothers, cousins, uncles, because his brothers, cousins, and uncles, they didn't know either, you know. So they did the best that they could, but it still did not foster that network of information where they were able to glean from one another and bounce off of one another. Because one person trying to do what 10 people have already done and come together, that makes us strong. This is always going to be stronger than this.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
That resonated with me. I would like to believe it's starting to change somewhat, but we have a long way to go. We do. We really do.
We do. And I do believe that it is going to change, because I can see, even in my community, I remember as a little girl, it seemed like the one community owned all of the stores and restaurants and that kind of thing. And then it shifted over to where there was a large Arabic population that owned most of the stores and that kind of thing. And now it seems that it's shifting over again, where I see a lot of African Americans that are owning stores and restaurants and having businesses and stuff. So I do see that it seems to be shifting. And knowledge, of course, is more readily available with the internet now. But if we could even just get our own community to come together and support one another, that's what the exit strategy is all about. We're all about supporting one another. We call it fixing each other's crowns, because, sometimes one of us might be strong in one area where another one is strong in another area. And that's why we came together and wrote this book, and we come together and do a lot of the things that we do, because we do want to support and strengthen, help one another in our businesses. Even though we have different areas that we work in, we also work in tandem together to make sure that we're as strong as we possibly can be. As most people say, well, Black women just don't have the ability to work together. They're too strong. No, we work well together. And yes, we are strong. And yes, we do have those moments where we have to, fix each other's crowns.
Absolutely. Right.
So,
yes. But I love that. And I mean, yes, I feel like that is starting to change. I love what your group represents. And I hope that this message is reaching you all out there, even in, like myself, when I was talking about the real estate piece, where my husband and I buy properties and then we rent them. I have a coworker, him and his wife got started maybe a couple years after us. Their ministry in real estate is to buy, flip, and sell. Love it.
Okay. Yeah.
And I remember it was because there's only a few of us in my particular office, and we do, particularly him and I, we like to chop it up and encourage each other or whatever. And we have one that's a little younger that's, not there, and which I'm making sure has this book, because you can see him and I are pretty close in age. We're in our 50s. This particular individual is about 10 years, but not even thinking, and we're trying to encourage it is now. Had we been doing at your age at 40 years old,
yes,
here we would be so much further. And the mindset seems to be, I'll get there right now. I gotta, my babies are still here, and I want to get here. At least let me get this promotion first. And there's so much you can do right where you're at. And I love, like I said, this is why I thought it was so important to not stop at just one interview, or even all five of you all. When I get a chance to speak with all five of you, we're going to come back and do some more collaborations, because this is extremely important. And I really want this out there. So let me circle back to the next question that I have.
Okay.
I wanted you to educate us on linear income versus residual income.
Okay, I can do that. So, and this is really good for a person who is like that person that says, "Well, I'll go and do it in a few years," because understanding the difference in linear income versus residual income is so important. Linear income is what most of us are familiar with, right? It's the traditional model. It's where you trade your time for money. For example, you work a job, you get paid a salary or an hourly wage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the equation is simple. You work X, you earn Y dollars, but the momentum to stop working, that income stream stops, right? The
Right.
moment you stop working, that income stream stops. It's like a faucet that only turns on when you turn the handle or when you work those hours. Now, residual income is a different and is so different because it's a far more powerful beast. Residual income is money that continues to flow
Yes.
like a faucet. There we go back
Yes.
with that faucet, right?
Like the
It
faucet.
continues to flow even after the initial work has been done. Think of it like planting a tree. So you plant a tree today, but the fruit continues to bear and keep on bearing. As long as you water that fruit year after year, it's going to continue to grow. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's what residual income does. It just continues to keep right on going. Like you mentioned, rental property. You know, from rental property, you get someone else to pay that mortgage if you have a mortgage on there, but it continues to bring in that income consistently and even while you sleep. Who was it? Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett said, if you don't figure out how to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. So you
Yes.
got to get some linear income in your life, honey.
Yes. Yes.
It happens by shifting your mindset so that you now have a mindset that you are intentional about getting income and not just going to work and only getting it while you're trading those hours for dollars.
Amen. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since the focus of the book is wealth and mindset that you have to achieve it, I want to talk to you about two types of mindsets that you discuss:
Mm-hmm.
fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And I want to talk, well, I want you, the expert, to talk about both, please.
Listen, you know what? And you would think when I thought about the terms fixed
Mhm.
mindset versus a growth mindset, you would really think about whether or not a person is based on a person's upbringing and how they were raised, but it's kind of not because my sister and I, and we're only a year and a half apart, but we have different mindsets. One is fixed, one is a growth mindset, and y'all figure out which one is which, right?
Okay.
A fixed mindset is when you are limited in your thinking process where you feel like only your skills and what you know how to do, that's the only amount of money you can make, that's the only thing you can do. You are fixed with a certain way. This is the way things are, this is the way things are going to be. Where with the growth mindset, you're willing to try something different, something new. You're willing to make it happen, even if I don't know if I can do it, but I'm willing to take a chance. I am going to try it. You know, I will, when it comes down to business concepts, when it comes down to making a move, making money, I'll try it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say I'll try anything, but
Right.
I'll try business strategies. I will try them. I don't have to have heard about it for the last 50 years before I make a determination. I'll see a property, for instance. I'll see a property, and sometimes I don't even have to see a property. If I know, so I bought a property that I'd never seen before. But I knew that the person who was renting it, I didn't know the person, but I knew that there was a person who was renting it that worked a full-time job. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that they had children who went to school daily. I knew that they weren't living in crap, junk. I
Right.
knew that it was a decent family that was living there.
Right.
And when the property went up for sale, I knew that it was cash flowing, and I knew that it was under the value of the market. So the property was being sold for, just say, $50,000 with a value. Because of course I ran my numbers. I'm not a fool. I
Right.
ran my numbers, and I knew that the value of the property was $150,000. That's a no-brainer
That's a no-brainer,
for me.
honey. Yes.
And it's cash flowing at the market rental rate, oh baby, that's a no-brainer for me. So I'll
No-brainer.
buy it. Where other people, I'll say, I'll find a property like that maybe I'm not in a position to buy right then. So I'll hit up some friends or family members and say, hey, this property is this and this, and I'll give them all the details. And they know that they know me. So they know that I'm not going to fabricate anything, because it really doesn't make a difference to me one way or the other, whether you get it or not. I just
Right.
want to see if there's an opportunity for you to get it. And they'll say, well, that neighborhood is not one that I would want to live in. But it's a great opportunity to rent a property and make some residual income. It's a difference in a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. You might be scared out your wits. There have been so many times that I've taken opportunities, taking chances on different opportunities that I didn't know how the outcome was going to be, but I
Yeah.
weighed my options. If you are a person who does not weigh your options and does not look at it thoroughly, that's what you call a fool. But
Yep.
when you know that you looked at the numbers and you've gone through the process of seeing whether it makes sense or not from a financial business perspective, because with business, it's the bottom line that matters in business. So if I've looked at all of the numbers and I've weighed everything, I looked at the outcome, and the exit strategy is important to me. When
Mm-hmm.
I purchase a property for investment purposes, I always think about the exit strategy. I never buy a property and I don't know what the exit strategy could look like. And
Right.
usually, especially if I'm going to purchase it without seeing it, I'm going to make sure that there are at least at least two exit strategies.
Okay.
And when I make sure that I can get two exit strategies out of there, baby, I'm going to purchase that puppy every time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So fifth mindset and the growth mindset is the difference in being limited in your thinking pattern, in your thinking. You don't like to be challenged. You don't like to, it's just fixed. It is what it is, and that's what it's going to be, and that's doggone it. That's all it is ever going to be. Or
Right.
growth mindset means I'm willing to take a chance. I'm willing to move and see what I can do better, how I
I
can be
like it.
better.
I like it. So maybe your fixed is somebody that just wants the safe route. And then, yeah, your growth mindset is someone that's willing to take the chance, the risk, and reap that
Mhm.
reward. Something you
Yeah.
said, and this is like a little bit off subject, but I want to mention it because I wanted this to be heard. When you said that you look for properties and you got to be forward thinking, and they would say, oh, I don't want to buy in that neighborhood. Let me just say, I want people to be mindful, when you are purchasing real estate and gentrification is happening.
Yeah.
Y'all, if you don't get in while you can get in, these same properties that a lot of people put their nose up at, in a
Yeah.
year or two, you won't even be able to buy there. You have got to be forward thinking, and we don't know how to get involved with, even in local, that's why I say local politics, or just being involved, planning boards and being in meetings and finding out what is the city going to do with this air. There are some things that we're not privy to because we don't try to get a seat at the table. We need to. And
Yes.
I love what you said, when you find that and you try to, bring folks in, say, look, you know what, go ahead and get this. And you can always get income, because I'm gonna tell you something. As long as you have a property that a person can dwell, rental property, people are going to rent your property. They just are. Now, what you
Yeah.
get for that's going to change over time. But I'm just saying, please, y'all that want to get in the real estate game, or that are, be open sometimes, because I have watched before my eyes, and I have been regretful of decisions that I chose to walk away from properties that I kicked myself for. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah. So I
Me
just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I've walked away from properties that I later said, doggone it, I wish I would have bought that.
Yeah.
One property in particular, I walked away from it because it was a condo, and it was in downtown Detroit. And the condo at the time was, I think that place was like 72 or 80,000, something like that. But I walked away from it because of the association dues. The association dues were $1,000 a month. And I thought, that's a lot for the association dues. Even though the price of the condo was cool, it was a lot. But guess what? That was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. Maybe, yeah, about 7 or 8 years ago. But guess how much that property went back on the market for about 3 years after that?
How much?
Almost $1 million.
Oh.
Yeah, I kicked myself. I kicked
Whoa.
myself. Oh, and it sold. It
Yes.
sold within a couple weeks. It was gone.
Yeah.
So pay $70,000 for a property and sell it for $790,000. Hello? But that
Hello.
gentrification was happening in the city at the time. Well, it still is. It started happening where you can't find a unit downtown for under 100,000, under 200,000. You just can't find it now.
Yep.
But back then, that was 7 or 8 years ago. They were down there,
And
and so
yeah, and that's the thing that we need to educate ourselves on too. That's the thing that others know that
yeah,
we don't know, or we
yeah.
need to get better at understanding.
We need to get better at understanding, and we need to get better at um, helping one another to understand. So
Amen.
there was, and there even right now there are some multifamily properties that are going on the market now, because we just came out of course the COVID situation, where a lot of people stopped paying rent. So when
Yes.
people stopped paying rent, a lot of these buildings were financed up the wazoo. Well, it caused a lot of people to go into foreclosure. I'm talking about corporations or big apartment complexes, because we usually play on the small scale, a couple 100,000 here, 150,000 there, like that. But stop being afraid of the larger numbers, especially when we come together and do what's called syndication, where we buy a property as a conglomerate. We come together and buy it as a unit, and then we're able to make these larger numbers in dollars, as well as you may put out a couple million to buy the property, but then to be able to make a couple million within a year or two, and have that money start flowing back to you, where you never have to work again a day in your life, just
Yeah.
because you did a couple of syndicated deals. But because someone may not understand, like say I come to you, Sherry, and say, here's the property, here's the value, here's what it's doing now, here's the vacancy. I give you all the information, and you look at the information and you run the numbers and it makes sense, but you don't understand it because you're not in real estate. You just dabble in investing here and there,
Right.
but because it's not your wheelhouse, you're afraid to dive into it, even though it's something that you might be able to do. You're afraid to do it because it's not in your wheelhouse. If we could stop doing that and just be willing to, as long as it makes sense, now, not
Right.
foolishly, right?
Right.
And I think because I'm seeing the shift over to Black and brown people, but it's small here, small there. But
Right.
why not play it on a larger scale, so that
Right.
we see these bigger communities being shifted over into our hands?
I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, y'all just meditate on that for a second. Just saying. So I have another question for you. So
Mhm.
let's now delve into the three-pronged gap.
Woo.
Income, yes, income, wealth, retirement, savings gap.
Mhm.
Talk to us about that.
So let's talk about the income gap. So we know that men make more money than women on average. Men have been paid uh, over 20%, 25% more than women on average. And then there is a gap in the wealth. Black and brown people's net worth is about $24,000. This blew my mind. This blew my mind when I read this, when I first read this. Black and brown people, black people make about 24,000. Our net worth is about $24,000, where our counterparts, our Caucasian counterparts, have a net worth of about 179,000. What a disparity!
Huge.
24 versus 179. Hello?
Wow.
That just doesn't even make sense. And when I first read that number, I couldn't believe it, or heard it. I couldn't believe it. So I went and did my research. And even though the numbers might change from, 24 and 179 to maybe 27 and 184, or, they're right there. They're still right there, regardless to who's doing the reporting. Right. And I was even in a class once, and the gentleman got up and said, the Black community has increased in wealth by about $5,000 or 10,000, whatever the number was that he touted, in the last 2 or 3 years, and where the white population has stayed the same. I raised my hand because I was like, yeah, I don't know if there has been a $15,000 increase in the Black population, but even though the white population may have stayed the same, that's still $180,000 versus $30,000. Hello, right. There is no comparison. So right. Even if it did increase by that $15,000, that's still not enough to make there be any kind of, because his point was they're moving up and we're remaining the same. That was his point in general. And it's like, so don't get sidetracked by the notion that Black people are moving up the ladder. We got a long way to go. We do. So that's my pet peeve, my soapbox. I'm going to get off of that and get into the retirement savings gap. Okay. So the retirement savings gap is that we don't have, and when I say we, I mean Americans, Black, brown, green, purple, it doesn't matter. Right. Americans in general do not have enough monies in retirement in order to be able to retire comfortably, or even at the same level that they're at right now. So what we need to do is we need to start, we need to learn how to save for retirement so that we get lifetime residual income. Think about it. When you retire, just say most Americans have saved up a 401k, even if you call it a 403b or whatever your terminology is. There is a certain amount of money that you've saved up for retirement. Well, when you retire and start pulling that money out, remember, you're going to have to pay taxes on that money. So if you've saved up $100,000, the average American is at a 22 to 24% tax bracket, which means that you actually got about $85,000 that's going to be your money after taxes, and less than that, because as of January 1st, 2026, the taxes are going up because that tax reform bill that was signed into order is going to end on that date. And when that ends, if you're in a 24, for an example, if you're in a 24% tax bracket today, on the January 1st, 2026, you're going to be in a 27 or 28% tax bracket at that point. So that $24,000 that you would pay today is going to be $27,000 tomorrow, on the first. So that gap is even getting wider as the taxes increase. There's just not enough savings to last for the balance of your life. People are living longer these days. And as people are living longer, we have to make sure that we save more strategically to have money that's going to last. That income gap that I mentioned earlier In retirement, that means because we're our retirement dollars, when we get Social Security income, that income is based on what we made in the past, which means that even in retirement, women are going to be making a little less than men. Why? Because they've already been paid less during the years when they were earning income. And now during retirement, when they're no longer earning income, they now no longer have the ability to make more money. So it's time to make those strategic moves now.
Got it. Yes. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Are y'all listening out there?
Yeah, it's a whole thing, y'all. And listen, pick up the book, get the book, because Design Your Wealth Mindset really gives great information on how to save for retirement. It gives information on how to, there's a budget plan, or a spending plan, rather. There's a spending plan in the book where we even have a workbook where you can do exercises yourself to figure out where you are and where your gaps are, and actually playing some hopscotch games in there so that you can figure out what it is that you need to do strategically to get better with your finances as we are nearing retirement age. And everybody, I don't care if you're 25 today, you are getting closer and closer to retirement age. And now is the time to start. If you are 55 today, now is the time to start. There is no time like the future to start taking care of your finances. I'm going to say this. You know, we talked, Sherry, about making sure that we save for and help our children, generational wealth. We talked about that. Well, if we have if we put things in play now, the foundational principles for generational wealth, start with home ownership and life insurance. Life insurance and home ownership. We, as in general, I'll say, people who are not within that 1% tax bracket, because people in that 1% tax bracket, they know this strategy about the 7702, where you can get savings on your taxes. You don't have to pay quite as many taxes. Actually, when you have that strategy in play, you pay zero in taxes, and it has to be structured in a certain way. That's with the Index Universal Life strategy, where you can overfund your account and save up monies for your retirement. And you just need to give the exit strategy a call, so one of the five of us can help you to put those strategies in play so that you can retire comfortably, and also give you an opportunity to retire with a lifetime of income.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to do it. Y'all need to do it. Seriously. Now that because that was the one piece that I did need some more education on. So yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
And we all go, we all need education on something.
Oh yeah.
But it's not about whether or not we need it. It's about whether or not we get it.
That part.
So that's the key. One of the exit strategists, Brandy, she always says, she always gives that notion that knowledge is only powerful when it's applied.
I like that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Well, we have been just blazing through, and I have one last question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
This has just been so so helpful, insightful. So for all these wisdom gems that you're dropping, thank you so much. I'm going to give you this last question, and then I'm going to give you some time to talk to us about some things that you have going on. But I found it very interesting in the book how you break down the difference between entrepreneur versus business owner. And I really want you to talk about that.
Yeah. So I kind of hinted on it earlier today when we were talking about the 4 quadrants, a business owner versus an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur really creates another job for themselves, but they just have the work that they're still trading their time for money, but it's their own time that they're trading at their own business, at their own job for the dollars. Where
Mhm.
now that's an entrepreneur. A business owner may start off looking just like an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, their end game goal is to have something that is has produced a scalable business where they no longer have to be in the minutia of the day-to-day operations, right? Their end game goal is to have something that's bigger than themselves, something where they can eventually step out of the business and have it still run itself. That's
Mhm.
a business owner, and they still allow it to run itself and still create dollars
Mhm.
for themselves and their family.
Okay.
That's the
And
difference.
the reason why I wanted to come back to that and just have you like kind of talk to that as we wrap it up is because I think people think they're the same.
Mm,
And yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and
for
I
sure.
wanted yes, and I wanted you to highlight the difference because sometimes I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, well, entrepreneurship is key," and it is. But I like how you make sure you help people understand the difference in the end games because
Yeah,
some people that think that in entrepreneurship is where they want to go and it's okay. I don't think they realize that there's another step you can go to where you actually have a business that is running day to day that you started on. It runs itself and that you're always going to get income from it, but you're not in there on the grind. So I
hmm,
wanted that, even though I got it, I just want to make sure everybody understand that because I find that a lot of people think that the two are the same. They are not. They are both wonderful. They are
yeah,
not the same. So
yeah.
thank you for that.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that the exit strategy provides is access to platforms and systems through partnerships, opportunities, and mentoring, training, and other fundamental skills that are necessary to start and then run a successful business. That's very important to us.
Awesome. Well, that was my last question. And at this point, I would like to ask you, what projects do you have going on? What are some things that you want to tell us about that you have coming up? How can we support you? Just let us know what you got going on, sis.
All right. Well, since you asked, no. So I don't have any what do you call them, engagements coming up right now anytime. I don't have any dates for engagements. Well, it's Sunday, but that's another story. But I do run a nonprofit organization called a life healing agency. A lifehealingagency.org is our website. And we provide financial literacy, real estate investment strategies, and comprehensive first time home buyer education. So we help people to get into that first home. We help people. I was mentioning earlier about how I go into the schools and work with the young people, the 12th graders, but we help people to know how to invest in real estate, the different strategies that are available, and also providing financial literacy. A lot of times you see those first time home buyer programs, but they don't really teach you financial literacy principles and concepts so that you can actually stay in that home. Well, we do. We teach you those concepts so that you can stay in your home. On And that's a nonprofit organization. So if you do have a corporation where you'd like for us, because that's another thing that the exit strategy does as well, is that we go into churches and corporations and teach financial principles to the employees, so that everyone has access to the tools and the resources that are needed for success in business ownership, in their personal financial world, so that they can help create a more sustainable uh, uh, opportunity for themselves and for their family. And so that's what we do, and we really are redefining sexy. Is what we like to say. We redefine the notion of being sexy, especially as women. We all want to be sexy, right? But if, when you get sexy from your financial perspective, that's when it's like you can do some real snaps, baby.
Oh yeah.
Because
Yes.
that's real sexy.
That's
Yeah.
real sexy, y'all.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Miss Monica Love. It has been a pleasure. It has been educational, enlightening. Guys, please, I have in the ticker here, down here, that's scrolling on the banner, her website and the Exit Strategy 5 website that you can go to. I'm going to also put it in the description. So make sure you utilize the resources that are out there. You have 5 amazing women that are ready and willing to help. Make sure you get this book if you haven't already, because I told you in part 1, I expect you to have it and read it because we're not done yet. So
Right.
thank you again. Thank you so
Thanks
much for
for
being
having
here.
me. Thank you, Sherry. You are amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, guys, with that, we're going to bid you a good night. Again, make sure you get the book. Make sure you use these resources and continue to grow because there's always room for growth. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.